Hello, all. Welcome back to the Fangirl Fantasy Podcast. I am Julie Russell, and today's episode is going to be a little bit different. I have my best friend from childhood on, Corinne Huntley.
Hi, guys.
And she's going to be interviewing me because we talk about my, what I do and the different kind of experiences that I have, but I've never really taken you through the journey of it all and how I got to here. So Corinne's going to help take you through that journey because she's been telling me I need to do this. And so I'm going to let her do it because she's been a part of the journey with me.
Perfect. So I think it's really important for Julie's listeners to really hear how she started, how she got into it. I think being her friend and watching her throughout the years from being, staying up all night in New York City, chasing Nick Jonas, finding out where he's living. Being her friend, I've gotten a lot of questions over the years of like, how is Julie doing this? Or, oh my gosh, she's so lucky she gets to do this. But, really being her friend, I get to see the work that goes on behind the scenes. And I think a lot of people that watch Julie from high school or know her personally, or even her new listeners on her brand, Julie has a really cool story, and I think it's really valuable that we hear it and fangirls at home so you can actually live it. How can you turn your career from being a fangirl into really getting into the industry and working from there? So to start off the podcast, we're just going to talk about Julie's, the beginning days when she was just this girl chasing Nick Jonas, how she started, how that turned into kind of where she is now.
Yeah, so literally Corinne can tell you my room was plastered with Jonas Brothers posters growing up. And even before that, Aaron Carter. And Corinne was an Aaron Carter girl too. She loved him. But it was just, I was always in my room watching the YouTube videos of their interviews and just, I consumed everything. I learned so much just on my own in my room, like from Twitter when it first came out and just Facebook and I don't know, I just really kind of pop culture was just a thing that I just loved and it came really naturally to me as well. Like, I'm like, oh, a publicist does this or, oh, this. Even when I was like 14, 13 doing it and just going to concerts, I just always like on the weekends when I wasn't playing sports, it's like, oh, Julie's at another concert. And so, there's like these even just small concerts like at the Middle East and a band that I just saw they had a show and it's like pop music. I'm like, oh, I'll go to that. Why not? There's nothing else to do. It's a $10 ticket. And just talking to the managers or talking to the bands. And I'm like, oh, crap. Like, thinking about it now, I thought they were older, but it's like they're only 22, 23, and they're the managers are in the band. I'm like, I could do that. Like, and then I was like 16 and I'm like, okay, like thinking about, long term. And then it's like 17, 18. I'm like, can I go to New York to go see them and like go on the Today go see them at the Today Show? Because then when Twitter was getting big, it's like, oh my God, all these people that I know from like social media in New York are meeting them. Like, how do I get to meet them? Like, and do that. So.
Well, and you had a little crew. Like, I remember I would be doing homework after school, and Julie would be, no hotel in New York City, finding Nick Jonas or finding, being on the Today Show in the morning. And it was always like, how did you do that? Like, how did you just find people through online? Like, how did that all happen? How did you get that group to do those things with you that maybe I was not willing to do at, 15?
It definitely wasn't that young. So 2011, we were juniors. And that was Joe Jonas' solo career. I just know it like specifically. And, we're 16, 17. So we're a little bit older now. And we had like it was like a holiday and Joe Jonas was in the city. And I'm like, Dad, like, can you just like drop us off at, I think I brought Katie Paskowitz. I'm like, Katie, like, let's just go in the city and like see if we can meet Joe Jonas. My dad just dropped us off and he was like, all right, like take the train back home, like whatever. I'm like, okay. And at the hotel, it was Heather.
Yeah.
I didn't know Heather. We just met.
And you met
and
through
we're
there,
like, oh, and Heather who was on the first episode. And she's like, oh, I'm from Chelmsford. I'm like, oh, I'm from Brooklyn. But we like kind of knew each other from like Tumblr. We followed each other and like Twitter.
Oh my gosh, the Tumblr days.
Yeah.
Where it all started.
Legitimately. And so we just kind of just started talking there. And then Joe was at Six Flags that summer and we're like, oh, I was there and you were there and this and that. And so we just kind of bonded and then followed each other on social media and then just kind of hit it off. And it was just so convenient that Heather lived the town over from me. And we're like, oh my God, you love what I love. And so then after school, then we just started hanging out. Like we had our license, so we could just drive to each other's house. Like we were watching just like the shows that we love. Like it just came naturally, our friendship, because we both loved it. And then, I don't even know. they were promoting something. I think maybe pom-poms or I don't know. But it was the first time I could go into New York. I was like, can I go? I was like, Heather's going. And so mom was like, I don't even know who this Heather girl is. No,
Yeah.
like, I'm not just letting you go. I'm like, but there's all these other people are going to be there. And it was like Andrew and stuff who literally we know through social media. And that was it. And I was at the mall with my mom the night before we were supposed to be going. And they still weren't like happy that I was going, but it was kind of like, you're old enough. You've never done anything to
Yeah.
like not have our trust to go. And also like, and we ran into Heather at the mall. And I'm like,
That's
she's real.
It's
like,
fate.
yeah. And so it was kind of just like, okay, like,
Yeah.
put a face to a name. And then our parents like met her
Parents.
her mom. So it was
And then
kinda,
once you meet like the parents meet, then you
it's
can
like,
basically do
okay,
anything together.
Yeah. Well, then it was like, okay, you really do live the street over, like, or
Yeah.
the town over. So, and then I just kind of went from there. And yeah, we take the mega bus from Boston to New York City. It's a 4-hour bus ride, and they're usually no more than $25 one way. Sometimes they're like $10, $12.
Yeah.
Because we also would leave at like 10 p.m. to get there at like 2 a.m. because the Today Show
Yeah.
is at like 6, but you wanted to get there early, you know, you wanted to get your spot in line. And then we would just spend the rest, like we'd meet them at the Today Show, and then they're like, okay, now they're going to MTV because we knew they're pressing. So I'm like,
Yeah.
all right, the 12 of us that was in our group would then go to MTV, and then we'd go here, and then we'd go to there.
Yeah.
We'd meet them 6 or 7 times, or we'd at least just see them.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, holy crap, because it was like first time like, in real life being around them, but also like, I was like, oh my God, they're in MTV, which is also like, I'm outside MTV, which is just like kind of like for me, it was, that stuff is really, really cool to me. And then we'd just like take a 6, 7 p.m. bus home.
So make a day of it.
Yeah, it would just be a day, you know, there was no responsibility of driving.
Yeah.
Like, we were exhausted, obviously,
Mostly.
but then we're also just like, we were taking photos on our digital camera too, because it
Yep.
wasn't like iPhones
Those were
or
big back
anything
then,
like
yeah.
that. So like, then we're all just like, oh my God, look at our photos. And
things
you
like
have to
that.
wait till you get home to upload them. And
Yeah.
it was just, they were literally the most fun day. And they were just day trips.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't anything crazy. And we, you know, I mean, there are sometimes I lied about the time we were going. And me and Heather would be like, okay, you just say you're like, our mom, like, come to my house, and my mom will drive to the bus station, and
Yeah.
I'm going, and we just go at like 8 p.m. and get there at like midnight instead of like 10 p.m. So we would just sometimes, because we just wanted to like make sure we got there
Yeah.
on time. And then
No,
it was to the
definitely.
point when I loved the Hunger Games. Like, I loved the Hunger Games. Like Jennifer Lawrence at that time was like someone I really, really looked up to. I just think she's funny and
Yeah.
just cool.
She's super
and
relatable and fun.
so my friend that I met through like the Hunger Games kind of fandom, she's like, I want to go see Jennifer on SNL. I'm like, oh, me too. Me
Might as well.
her and her mom went and camped out for SNL. Like, we got a hotel down the street so that, like, okay, we take shifts. Like, all right, you go shower, you go
Yeah.
like do this, that, and so I've like gone to SNL, and then I just really I fell in love with New York City, and like I knew New York City so well where I could be like, oh, we're going here. Okay, I know where that is.
Yeah.
I know that. And it just, yeah, I knew being so close to New York from Boston, I think also just gave me a lot of opportunity where it was like, okay, I could literally spend $30 for a round trip bus ticket for a day in case like anything comes up. And so I did a lot of that. And then it just kind of pivoted after like into college, and I was like, okay, how do I make this a career? And
Yeah.
I was asking like, you know, different majors, and I was like lost for a little while. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I like hated college because I was like, I feel like I learned so much more not in college,
Yeah.
like not in class, and I'm like not the best like book smart kind of
Yeah.
person. I'm very common sense smart, and so college, like I went to college for basketball, and then but like while still majoring in what I was majoring in, and I hated it. Like, I hated living on a campus because like also playing basketball, I'm like, I can't go, and like there's concert tonight, but I have weightlifting at this time, I have a game at this time, and
Yeah.
now and all my friends are at that concert, or all like this is happening and I can't go. So I transferred. I went to a community college for 2 years, and I got my associate's degree. I saved a ton of money, and
Yeah.
but then I got to like, okay, I got to go do this. Okay, this is happening. I got to do this, and then I got a job at the radio station.
Yeah.
Literally while just at community college, and so just yeah.
Well, even before then, you had mentioned that you were talking to people's managers. Now, for someone like me, would be completely out of my comfort zone, like how do you think you found confidence in numbers, and that the fact that you had Heather and you guys were so spontaneous, like how did you go about, you know, reaching out to those managers and those kind of big people?
So I know what you're talking about. So Grown Ups 2, Alexander Ludwig was here and I loved him. And like I said, pop culture in this world is really, like, it comes natural to me. Like, I understand the way it's happening, and also, like, I love radio. Like, I would listen, like, every morning we woke up and, like, Kiss 108 Maddie in the Morning is on. And I would listen. I'd call in for the radio tickets. I would do that. Like, I love the segments. Like, just when there's events, like, for radio events happening, like, I was going to them. Like, I just very much, the whole world of it, I just consumed it. And so Alexander was in town, and I just think I just know how to, like, put the pieces together. And so I had a relationship with one of the guys at the Kiss 108 when I was like, he would just always know I was going to the events, and if there's like leftover tickets or like to let me into that, he'd be like, oh, I want to come in. And so we had like an open DM on Twitter.
Yeah.
And he also knew like I wasn't like a crazy person. Like I'm very, like, me telling these stories, I'm very respectful.
Yeah, that is a fine line,
yes,
right? Like of being go-getter and then crossing it. And I think that's what a lot of people struggle with is like wanting to put themselves out there. But when you put yourself out there, you're open to get, rejected or, make a bad impression. So like that's a really fine line.
Like, I've met Nick Jonas 100 times, but I probably said 20 words to him because I get so nervous and shy around him. Like, I could talk about a whole book about how, like, he's the reason I'm doing all this, but when I get to him, I'm just like, hi. Like, so, like, like, I'm never in a situation where it's like, Julie, like, you shouldn't have done that. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, so Alexander was in town, and all summer, like, and I just loved him. I loved like I said, the Hunger Games, I just all that stuff. And I started just connecting, like, I'm like, okay, that's his manager. That's blah, blah, blah. That's like, and he follows him on Twitter and this. And so then I just like started like having a conversation with one of his guys on Twitter who like helps him with like his press and this and that. And so then I'm like, okay, well, I have that contact. And then I talked to the guy at Kiss 108 and he's in town. So I literally just DM'd the guy from the radio station. I was like, hey, Alexander Lugwood's in town. Like, you really need to have him on. Like, he's filming this. Like, he's from the Hunger Games. He's doing that. They're like, he's like, oh my God, yeah, we want to have him on Maddie in the morning. I'm like, great. Now I just got to get him on.
Yeah.
So then I DM'd his manager or like his PR guy, Andrea. And I was like, hey, like, they want to have him on the radio station. And he's like, okay, cool. Like, let's set up. So I just got both of their emails, introed them, and at 18.
Yeah.
And entered them in an email. And I was like, hey, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, great. And I just did that.
And did you even know it was like you were doing a job without doing it? Like that seems...
I just wanted Alexander to like appreciate that I was such a big fan of him and that I could do that.
Yeah.
And I just wanted like the world to know about Alexander.
Yeah. But like now that's a job. Like people pay big money to get those connections, and you were just like doing it on your own.
Yeah, I was just like thinking,
for free.
I'm like, oh, okay, like I want to hear him on the radio, so I bet other people want to hear him, and there's people that are meeting him, and he's not just nobody. So yeah, so I was just doing that, and Andrea, who set that up, he's my go-to guy now.
Yeah.
He doesn't even live in this country, but when he's in LA and stuff, I fly out just to go see him.
Yeah.
We've worked on projects together, like huge things. Like that connection, he's given me so many opportunities.
Nice.
It's like absolutely unreal. Like I'm so grateful for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just crazy that happened. Like, and he'll say it. He was like, you were just a little kid.
Yeah.
And now like I'm 26 and we're doing these things together. And he's like, this is crazy.
So it's important to keep those contacts. It's funny how something you made way back then is now helping you now.
He got me my job with Nervo.
Yeah, so the social media. So people who don't know, Julie does a lot of social media management, postings, timings, things like that. So can you talk about, because social media when we were growing up, like Facebook was the place, and Twitter was just emerging, and Instagram's where you just put your highly saturated photos that you didn't really think anyone would see. So you've seen it firsthand. You kind of got in the beginning, and you've seen it evolve now. So can you talk about like the beginning parts of you getting into social media, and then kind of where that's led you?
Yeah, so that was probably, so I was 18 when, Alexander was in Boston and I got him that interview, and me and Andrea just like kind of stayed in touch, and, he's like, all right, like if you ever need anything, this and that. And we were just friends on social media. Like he'd see what I'm doing. Like he saw I was at the radio station and this and that. And Nervo was one of his clients that he helps out with radio stuff. And he goes, I would love to like see if they're in Boston. Like, would you want like anyone at the radio station want to do anything with them? And I was like, they're not really like on the main, but we do like other like EDM stuff. Yeah. Like one of our part-timers do. And he has like his nightly radio show, Joe Bermudez. And I was like, he could probably want to do something with them. figured out, set that up. And so they did something, and then they were in town, and he was like, do you want to like meet them? So I like went during the interview, like, and we also had Andre as a mutual like contact. And then like I went to their gig that night with them. He was like, just go, like this and that. And so then it was like 6 months later, and he like called me, and he was like, Nervo's looking for someone to handle social media. They're like, social media accounts, are you interested? And at that time, it wasn't really a job. This is over 5, 6 years. This is
Yeah.
6 years ago. And like I've interned like at places where like I've like handed like the restaurants like social, but it was just like posting Instagram photos and, you know, kind of like this is the menu for the night. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I mean, yeah, I know social media. I'm on it 24/7, but I've never done it like at that volume.
At that scale.
And he was like, all right, well, like, want to interview with them? And so I was like, okay, and I hopped on a Zoom, and they're like, yeah, like, you're from, like, so them knowing me because I already did that interview with them and met them in Boston, they're like, okay, like, she's a young girl, like, we know her, she does work in radio kind of thing, like,
Yeah.
she knows this world. And so, yeah, they hired me, and I ran their social media for 5.5 years. And I left in last January, not this month, the year before ago. So I was with them for 5.5 years, and you know, we did their live streams with Tomorrowland, and I'd be like at my kitchen table, like making sure that it's up and live, and talking to the festival of like hundreds of thousands of people are there. You know, they'd be in Boston, they'd come to Boston, and I'd do all their like, you know, postings at the show, and then, you know, they had a residency in Vegas, so I'd make sure, you know, XYZ posts were being up because it was their contract. And just, I learned a ton. I met so many connections through promoters in Vegas and this because I'm just on the email chains with them. So they really got me, like, that job got me in the social media management world, because then I could kind of, it was just like a leverage. And it's like, Nervo's big in the, like, they're the #1 female DJs in the world.
Yeah.
So for me to, like, use that name, people are like, oh, okay, cool. So then I was like, they're looking for someone. They're doing, you know, they need someone. They need someone just for like a contract position for 3 months for this project. So then it was just like left and right. And then I would just see postings. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So I was like doing the radio jobs or interning here and freelancing on the side. So I've freelanced for social media for over 6 years now. And I've probably had like 30 different clients just based on, like I said, like they just like for Boston Calling Music Festival I did. And it was only for like a 3-month period because it was like a month leading up to it, then the actual, like the month of it, and then a month after kind of recapping it. So I've done a bunch of projects on that end of like, they don't need a full-time person, but they need someone on a project base. So yeah, that was kind of.
Yeah. And I think overall, like when you see people like with, you know, big social media, it's like easy to say like, oh, they're lucky, or like Julie's so lucky she gets to, you know, and it's not really luck. Like if you really listen to a lot of people's stories and how Fangirls really made it into the industry, like it's a lot of behind the scenes work, a lot of free work, you know, a lot of, you know, saying yes to opportunities, even if you're not sure, a lot of risk taking.
For sure. I've done 100 projects for free just because I'm like, all right, it'll be a good opportunity. That person will be there. It just gets my face in front of them or my name in front of them. And I'll just like, they need me there at 8 a.m. I'll be there at 6 a.m. Like that was kind of how my mindset was.
Yeah.
So that, like even I interned at Atlantic Records, and there's one of the execs that knew everyone at the radio station. So I moved to New York for the summer to work there. And I'm like, okay, like my boss at the radio station said he's really important. And I found out his schedule after like a couple days. I'm like, he gets in at 8:30. My office time wasn't until like 9:30, and everyone else didn't really get there until 9:30. I was there at 7. Yeah. And I made sure everything that he needed was already on his desk.
Yeah.
Like for that, you know, half an hour that we had alone, it was like, okay, like we got to have conversations like, oh, what did you do? What did you do this weekend? Or what music are you listening to?
Yeah.
Like just now having that really, it was like having that kind of personal time, and him being like, oh, like he knows I'm not supposed to be here till this time, but she's here early. And, you know, because I also didn't even report directly under him, but then he'd be like, hey, can you run and go do this? So it was just like that extra time alone that kind of separated me from everybody else.
And, you know, you're putting in that work without knowing if there'd be a reward, right? Like you're getting in early working hours that you know, aren't getting paid for, you know.
You don't get, I didn't even get paid for that. I moved to New York.
Internship,
I went to New York on unpaid internship.
Yeah, so, you know, saying yes to a lot of those opportunities with just the hope of making that connection that you need. And, you know, when you started at AMP Radio, which is a big radio station in Boston.
R.I.P.
Yeah, no longer, but it really had a good run. And I remember you were doing nights there, you know, and while in college, I think, trying to balance work, like, you know, the school aspect as well as working nights. And, you know, a lot of work's been put on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I missed out on a lot of stuff in college because they're like, you guys are like, oh, we're going out or come up here because we're doing this. And I'm like, oh, I can't. Like, I have to work or I'm doing this. Because I was on the street team, so I was doing a lot of, obviously, all the events. But then an opportunity came up where they needed someone to overnight board op. I've never done it, and I have no idea. And I was like, all right, whatever, I guess. And so shout out Mike Mullaney. He was like, all right, well, we'll just have someone train you. And I was like, okay. So I went in, and my friend Francesca was training me for the night. And she's like, you know, like I took the radio classes in school, so I had a very good understanding already of like XYZ of what's happening.
Yeah.
And so she was just showing me their format and, you know, where their music is this and that. And so she was on the night shift, and so an overnight shift starts at 12 to 6. And this is a Sunday, and so her shift was ending at midnight.
Yeah.
And the board op never came in. You know, like I was only training. She was only showing me for this. So then in like a couple of weeks that I can go on. He never showed up. And Fran called Mike Mullaney, her boss, and was like, hey, like he's never there. And he goes, well, do you know Julie Russell? And Fran goes, yeah, she's sitting here training with me. He goes, oh, perfect. Put her on the phone. And he goes, you think you can do it? I was like, I've been training for 2 hours. What do you mean you think I can do it? He goes, you think you can do it? I was like, I guess. Like, I mean,
sure, I'll try.
Like, the goal is not to have any dead air. So, like, if there's like 14 commercials running at a time, you can't get mad at me.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Especially like it being an overnight shift, like the odds of like people really
listening. Yeah,
at
I
that
guess
one time.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking. I'm just making sure the music's playing, the commercials are playing. And so Mike was just like, I'll keep my phone on loud. He goes, if anything, just call me. And I'm like, okay.
Oh my gosh.
And Fran stayed like an extra. She stayed till like 1 a.m. with me to like, make sure. She's like, you do it, but like I'll sit here next to you.
Yeah, and make sure.
And so yeah, my first shift was when I was training, and I did it. And I remember like, but then I had to work my like promo shift, like my like in office normal. So it was like work till 6. I went and slept on the couch in the conference room, and then I worked till like noon probably. And I remember like Joe Breezy and people came in and they're all clapping like the building didn't burn down. You did it. Like the station's still a thing. But yeah, that was just kind of like, if you're asked to do something, you just do it.
Step up to
you
the
just
plate
do it and you
just,
hope. Yeah. And it was like, I mean, Mike Mullaney is literally the best human ever. So like, God forbid something did happen, he would have just driven in. He would have driven and just like taken it over. But he also is just someone who like, he's also had a lot of trust in me and like has had my back with like, a lot of things as well.
And while you're working at AMP, are you also doing social media at this time? So you're balancing a lot.
School.
You have 8 arms.
Yeah. School, radio, freelance. And then I think I had like my other internship at the time. Doing like Tico and like
the restaurants, social media. And then you moved to LA for the first time.
So there's a little jump in there. So the influencers kind of happened first.
Oh, right. So
you know, Mad Con, Cameron Dallas, Nash Greer.
Shout out.
They're a tour, and it's an influencer tour. And they were in town, and I like tell my bosses, I'm like, we need to be there. Like, we need to cover it via social media, whether, you know, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever it is. And they're like, it's not. And I'm like, no, like, we do. Like, we really, really do. So they're like, all right, go. Take care of it this weekend. I'm like, okay. And we went, and like, we gained so many followers on like Snapchat and this. And literally, it was probably one of the coolest like work experiences because I just felt like I was just like, there's hundreds and thousands of, like, not thousands, but like hundreds and hundreds of fans, like thousands probably for the whole weekend for this tour. And it just looked so freaking fun. And then like the guy running it was my age. He was 20 years old. I'm like, how the hell did he get involved with this? And so I just talked to him the whole time. Ends up he's from Boston and this and that. And it's Nick, who's now my boss. And
so funny how it all works.
Yeah. So we just stayed in contact, and he was back in Boston because he's from here, like off a tour and stuff, and we hung out a few times. And then he posted on Facebook, he's like looking for someone to do social media for this convention called Playlist Live in Orlando. I sent him a message. I'm like, I would love to. He goes, okay, cool. Set it up. I went down to Orlando and I ran like the biggest social media convention, social media for the day, like with a Tana Mojo, and
And what was that like
Jenna
being
Marble. My head was spinning.
being on the other side? Because like you were, the fan that was the security's keeping back, right? And now you were like the person keeping the fans back.
Yeah, like I did a panel. Like I was like covering a panel with James Charles, Frankie Grande. I can't remember the third kid.
Yeah.
It was like a makeup, like men in
beauty guru space.
And there was like no staff there, and for some reason like no security. I have no idea why. And it was like ended, and I'm like, the fans like, and like James and them like trying to be nice, be like, come up like in a line one by one, and like we'll take selfies. You know what I mean? They were just trying to be, like, really nice, and like all of a sudden like the whole room like ran up, and I'm like, okay, like I don't know them, like this is my first event, like how does this kind of work?
Yeah.
And I literally looked at them, I was like, well, we gotta go, and I like grabbed them and we like ran backstage and like whatever, and like it was just like a crazy experience, and it was awesome. And then that was March, April of 2016, 2017. And America's Got Talent was a sponsor there. And so I was like, and like one of the guys, Cole, who he was on this podcast, he was also on the social team with me, and his boyfriend Adam was like there with America's Got Talent and one of their clients. Sophie Dosey, she is now a big influencer. She was like just on America's Got Talent, so they were there, and she was kind of doing performance, so I was kind of hanging out with them. And then we'll get back to that. And then that summer, Nick was on a tour with all these influencers across the country, Boys of Summer tour.
Yes.
And he was like, hey, we need someone to run the VIP for that. Want to come on tour with me? And I'm like, come on tour with the second leg? And I'm like, sure.
And I remember that because it was like Julie's going with, how old were they at the time?
They were like 16, 17.
17, yeah. Like just going on tour, like in a tour bus, like a real tour.
Yeah. And so they hired me to run the VIP. And I'm like, okay, like this is also weird because I used to be the one buying the VIP.
Yeah.
So then I went on a tour for 2 weeks, and it was like a dream, literally a dream.
Yeah.
I couldn't even make it up. And then after that tour, I was kind of like, I think I need to be in LA.
Yeah. Well, and going from celebrity, like when we were growing up, it was celebrities. There were no such thing as influencers. And now the influencers have really taken up the space. Like, all these TikTok boys and things like that are now like the new Backstreet Boys.
Yeah,
like
exactly. 100%. I mean, we were selling out venues, like 300, 400 screaming girls. Like, and like, it was just not crazy. And I became really close with all these kids and the parents, and they were like, oh, just come out to LA, like on the way, like, because they all lived there.
Yeah.
And like, and just stay with us for a few days or like whatever. And because, I was working part-time at the radio station, but I was also having freelance clients. So like my income was like fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For me to be able to like
do that.
And so I went out to LA with, and I stayed with Mackenzie Soul and Nikki and his mom.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, let me like see if I can get a couple interviews while I'm out here. And so I did. And one of them was with Adam from America's Got Talent. He was looking for someone for a digital social like assistant. And I was like, okay. And he was like, yeah, come down to the theater. Like, we'll talk. I'll show you around and I'll let you know what I'm looking for, XYZ. I'm like, okay. And he was just like, this is it, this job. Like, is this something you're interested in? I'm like, yeah, definitely. It's like, all right, like I have a couple more interviews. Like, how long are you in LA for? Like, if you did get the job, like, when can you come back out here? Just like normal
logistical questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Told him all that stuff, and I was like, I literally haven't bought a return, so I'm just kind of trying to figure this out.
So yeah.
He's like, all right, awesome. And then I was at a meeting with someone else, just like kind of like he was just like someone that's like also who's helped me out like in LA, and we just went and grabbed lunch, and my phone rang, and it was Adam, and I was like, I gotta like take this.
Yeah.
And okay. And so Adam was like, so you really want to work with me? and like if you just know, I was like, he goes, like, I'm not that great if you really want to work with me. And I'm like, like, and so he like offered me the job. And it was a contract, like 6-month position. And I had to be out there in 2 weeks.
Pack your bags.
So I literally was shaking. Like, I'm like 22.
This is like the first huge risk. Like,
yeah, 100%. I didn't have anything else like really to fall back on.
Yeah.
Like, so I was like, okay. And so I literally called, texted. I was like calling, like I'm telling, like whatever, like blah blah blah. But I'm like, I need to fly home. Like I need to pack. Like I don't even, like I'm still in LA, but I need to go to Boston.
Yes.
So I texted my friend Andrea, literally my credit card info, and I was like, I need a flight home tonight.
No, that's trust.
Yeah. Like I just like texted Andrea. I was like, I need a flight home tonight. I was like, can you just like literally just make sure it's a one way. It's a nonstop. Like, can you just get me a flight? She's like, yeah, of course. So she did that. And then I was back in LA in 2 weeks. And this is where I'm going to be really honest.
Yeah.
It was hard.
Yeah.
I did not do well out there. I got kicked in the face. Like LA said, Julie, you're not meant to be out here right now. Mentally, it just wasn't a great fit for me. Loved Adam, loved the job, loved, the environment.
Yeah.
Like,
well, LA is very different.
Like, I met Simon Cowell, like Howie Mandel. Like, I was in these, like, at these after parties that I'm like, oh, what the fuck? Like,
yeah, like, what's going on?
Like,
how am I here?
Yeah, like, Simon Cowell, like, said, like, welcome to the team, and, like, kissed me on the cheek, and I'm, like, literally texting my dad. I'm like, Dad, like, what am I doing here? But
that's hilarious.
Mentally and, like, timing-wise, it was not the fit for me.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time to, like, not be embarrassed to, like, say that. But like it just wasn't. But I don't regret it. Like in the time it was really, really hard, and I'm like, I failed. Like everyone's gonna be like, why is she like leaving already? But I don't regret it now. So after the 6 months was up, I moved back to Boston, but I'm super fortunate. I got a job at the Sports Hub.
Yep.
Which is a sports station obviously out here, and I was the promotions coordinator, and so I ran all their events and had a great experience there. And so again, like, but people are like, I'm like, people are gonna think I'm a failing, but me coming back to work for the Sports Hub, it's the Sports Hub, so people are like, okay, cool, like
that's even cooler. Yeah.
So like, I don't know, I think I just cared way more than what people thought than what people actually were even thinking there. Like they're like, what, Julie, we don't care about your life that much to even care that, you know what I mean? Like, no, we're not thinking about you the way you think we are. So I worked at the Sports Hub. Loved it. Like was just, going to games and events and still doing my social stuff on the side.
It was a good fit for you too, because like those of you who don't know Julie is very into sports, and we live in Boston, so we're very fortunate to enjoy sports here. But that was also kind of part of your brand. Like it was a good fit for you.
Yeah. It wasn't anything like
you didn't just like
oh, sports.
Yeah, you didn't just like come home and be like, I'll take whatever. Like that's actually like really worked out.
Definitely. So that was. So it would have been 3 years this year. So 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. Yeah. And I like still did the social stuff on the side, and then I did Boston Calling while I was there. And
social media is like really taking off. Like you've seen it go from like 0 to like 10,000. With
definitely.
Everything.
And then it was like it was like January. So December like 2018, this idea of like fangirl started coming into my head, and January of 2019, I'm like, okay, like I really think I could do this, and like.
And how did you get how did that happen? Because I think that's where people who like don't have your mind are like, how did you just one day come up with this business idea?
It was like internally, like it was just like back and forth, like is it a good idea like this? And obviously with my friend group, I kind of like just like sent it to like Heather and Eric and all them, and I was like, what do you guys think? Like, and there's nothing like it in Boston. So I'm like, and it's what the music, like it's the music that you listen to on your iPod when you're like, your iPod.
No, it was the music we were listening to on our iPods.
Your iPhone, like you're turning on Spotify and Apple Music, and that's what you're listening to in the car. It's not all this other stuff that people. And so I was like, okay. So I sent it to a few people, and I was like, what do you think? And they're like, yeah. And then I sent it like to JD, and I was like, what do you think of this idea? And he goes, he's like, it's obviously I'm not the demo, but just based on like hanging out with you and your friends, like I do think there's a fit. So then I called my friend Rico, who's a DJ, and I was like, because he works more with like the clubs and stuff like that, and I kind of, and Tone obviously, and I was like, okay, like this is the idea, I want to do it. I need a place to do it. And so they were like, okay, like give us a few days. And Rico like hit me back and was like, hey, like and introduced me to one of these clubs, like these bars, and was like, yeah, they'll let you do it. And so then it was around like February, May, and the first event was February, March, and the first event was May 11th, my birthday. Yeah. And then it kind of just like went from there. Yeah. And like, it's interesting because for those of you who don't know, JD or Tone, go back an episode because you get to meet them. But they were DJs that you ended up meeting on the come up, right? Like on when you were, I was on Street Team. Yeah,
Street
Team,
were entry level job. Like, and
they
you
were
met
on
them, and because of the lasting impression you had on them, they trusted you.
they didn't get a choice of my lasting impression. I never left them alone.
That's so true. But, they trusted you. And I think, through your career, that's what you've built. You built trust and people would bet on you. So, when you were coming up with this idea, JD and Tone were like, let's do it. Like, why not? And even the first event, can you talk about, the week leading up to the first event, you were trying to sell tickets. Like, what was that like?
Well, I'm a big ball of anxiety anyways. So,
aren't we all? Millennials.
So Tone was the DJ, and Tone doesn't know anything about my music. Like, our
Tone
music.
plays hip hop.
But he's just like my number one supporter. Like, he's the best person ever. And so we like had a meeting, and I was like, okay, this is the music that you're gonna play. I was like I'll line it up for you. You know what I mean? Like,
press play.
Yeah. Like when I tell you to play something, you're fucking playing it. Tone. Yeah. There's no if, ands, or but. And so basically, we kind of sat down and had like a music meeting, and I was like, okay, this, and he literally was like, yeah, like, and then like I feel like a good song to play with, like a hype of it would be like, I Want Candy by Aaron Carter, and he goes, who is this? Who is this? He literally ripped my heart out when he said, who is Aaron Carter?
Aaron Carter, the good days.
So long story short, so like that, and then I guess, it was just kind of getting the ideas of what the setup was going to look like. I was like, I knew I wanted to do like the photo wall and have the Instagram line and have balloons and just have it like be like a fun environment that you walk into. It's like nothing else.
Yeah.
And
the ring, like Julie brings a ring light, like she has the backdrop. People can take pictures, post on their social media, which is also good branding for you, right? Like people who don't know how to like, I guess the back end of it is, you get people to post about it.
Exactly.
And that's how you learn about it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because if they don't follow me but they follow you and you're posting. So
and everyone's curious, like, what is that? You know, and you tag the, the business, XYZ.
I'm super, super grateful that like all of my friends showed up.
Yeah.
Like all of our guy friends that we grew up with, like
they showed up.
All of them. Like, and they probably knew like 10 songs, but they were dancing and singing. Like they knew every single song. Like, my brother showed up and my brother's friend showed up. So like with that, like going into it, I already knew people were coming.
Yeah.
Like,
so you had a little bit of confidence and like could breathe out.
And then like seeing ticket sales come in and I'm like seeing names that you don't know. And you're like, oh, okay. And then
I remember asking you, I'm like, how many tickets have you sold from people who like we don't know?
Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, another name and this. And then like tickets were being sold at the door and all. And so I mean, I think the first night, like 172 people showed up.
Yeah, no, the first night was, really blew it out of the water, right? Yeah. We were going in. We knew we were going to have a great time because who wouldn't when Aaron Carter and Backstreet Boys is playing, like count us in. But I remember like that whole event starting, we started dancing and then people kind of got out on the dance floor and like the rest was history. Yeah. Like it was packed. And I just remember looking around being like, I cannot believe this. Like Julie's behind the DJ stand with JD. Like so many people are here. Oh, Tone.
Yeah, JD was
Sorry, Tone. It was you. You get credit for being the first. And it was just, so much fun.
Yeah. So, and then it just kept going from that venue. We had the second event in June, and then a third event was planned, and fuck 222. I hate you. I hope they go out of business, and I would never say that about anybody, but they screwed me. They took advantage of me. They thought because I was a girl that I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And they double booked us and
tried to kick you out. So tried to essentially
they kicked us out.
Take your fans and play their music.
Yeah. I lost a lot of money. I literally thought the Fangirl Fantasy was over. Like I was very upset.
Yeah, I remember that.
I thought I disappointed. It was it was my biggest event. It was almost
right after the Jonas Brothers concert.
Jonas Brothers concert across the street. So like all my friends from out of town were in town and coming to support, like, and to the point where like I have such great friends where like they were buying tickets, like they weren't even asking just to come, like they were like, and like
support your friends.
Yeah, and like my little brother came with like 4 or 5 different friends, like not even with like my older brother and his, like he just came because they were in the area and like just wanted to stop in to support, and so like I was so upset, like. I can't even put into like words like
because
it
was supposed to be
It was supposed to be my
night. That was your night. Like it was Jonas Brothers concert, right? So you have a bunch of Jonas Brothers fans who is your exact demographic. You were going in probably feeling confident, right? And when something like that happens, it just really pulls the rug out from underneath you.
I mean, when I say like all day ticket sales, and I was just like, holy crap, this is it. Like, oh my God, like this is exactly where I want Fangirl Fantasy to be. And so yeah, I mean, it happened. And for, I made like a statement. Everyone got a refund. If you wanted to, like, if you were supposed to come and I had another event, like I'd let you come for free, even if you got the refund. Like I was doing everything that like, I
Yeah.
was like, what would I want a business to do to make it up to me? So I did like as much damage control as possible, like all that good, like, all that stuff. And then I partnered with a rooftop over the summer and we did a rooftop events.
That was awesome.
They were much smaller, but
Yeah.
the environment was awesome. You had the overlook of the city and, we did like truly buckets and it was just really, really cool. So then that was just for the summer. Cause then I was like, okay, I need a new venue, like, cause I kind of
Yeah.
had to start from scratch cause you need a venue,
Yeah, and we lost the 22
yeah.
venue in Boston.
So, and it's kind of like, okay, she has a little, like, not a bad rep, but it's like, okay, do
yeah.
these people that came, like, trust me to come again? So, my friend from the sports hub, Jason, he was like, hey, my friend has this venue in Faneuil Hall, and I told him about your events. He'd be interested. Like, do you want to go? We can have like a meeting with him, and I'll come with you. And he's a DJ too. And I was like, yeah, like, cool. And so we went and got lunch with him and like I looked at the place like because I was someone like on the business side, like I have a vision for everything,
Yes.
so I need to make sure
It matches, right?
it matches my vision. And so we went and it was awesome. It was 2 floors and he was like, yeah, like, I kind of laid out like this is how my business runs, like this is kind of like, what you'll get, what I'll get, like this and that. And so we did Taylor Swift night at the Point in Faneuil Hall, and Jason DJ'd it because he set it all up for me, and
Yep.
him and his like fiance now like love Taylor Swift, so he's like
That was a huge night.
So all her friends came too, and like he got to DJ, so it was like fun, and it sold out like 2 weeks in advance.
And I remember on like Facebook, all of a sudden people like we all obviously share it, but then people who we didn't know were sharing it on theirs, and that was like really cool to see.
Yeah, it blew up. I mean, who doesn't love Taylor Swift?
Swifties are strong. Like talk about a fan base. Yes. They are the one.
And then I'll say this is 21 plus venue, so you had to be 21 plus to come, and 2 floors. So we had a DJ at the bottom, a DJ at the top,
playing 2 different songs.
Yeah, so like if
really
you're downstairs, like our song's playing, but if you go upstairs, like 22's playing.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. So I kind of like got
people were dressed up, like it was it was
wearing
so
like
fun.
Taylor Swift t-shirts, like so I got like my confidence in my group back. I'm like, oh yeah, cool, this is it. Like we're good. Like now like the Jonas Brothers fans and Taylor Swift fans are similar, but also very different. So I'm like, I have this like Taylor Swift niche now, and so.
And it's mutually beneficial. Like the business gets people in the door, right? And talk about great people.
Yeah,
girls, men, like people just want to sing their hearts out, no fights, like nothing.
Yeah.
It's just a really fun, easy night for them. It's very definitely mutual.
Agreed. And so then I was like, all right, I know I have I have like the Jonas Brothers and One Direction fan. I know their niche is there. And so Middle East downstairs in Cambridge, it's 18 plus. It's big. It's 550 people. And that was in November. Taylor Swift's October. And I sold it out.
That was awesome.
Yes. And
that's a place you were going to concerts and going to events. And now crazy. Like, your event is there.
Like my favorite artist is like Black Bear. And I saw him there sold out. Yeah. And then I'm like, what am I doing here? And so like, and it has
wait, this is my event.
It has a stage and it has, like, so like you kind of like look over and JD's set up on the stage and just so many people. And, that was the last event of 2019. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Hell
we're like, yes. 2020, we're coming for you.
Yes. I was like, 2020, I had like 7 events booked in January. I'm like, gonna go off strong.
And other states, like other cities were reaching out to you. So that's like important at this point. So people are hearing about this. People want this in their state. Fangirls like getting traction on social media. People are asking for you to come to their city. Like you are on like the peak. Yeah. Like you were on the up and up. Like
yeah. And then obviously COVID hit.
And then 2020 hit.
So
and then you had to shift.
Yeah, so a lot happened for me in like 2020, like COVID. So this all slewed it. Like there's no events. I got laid off from the sports hub. I got furloughed for the whole year. I lost a lot of social media clients because they're not having any business. So it was like, boom, like everybody though. I mean, I think everyone felt that way. So it was like shifting gears. I'm like, okay, what am I doing? So I went through the whole year. Like I still had a couple social clients, and then at the end of the year, by the summer, I was like, okay, I think I need to do a podcast. And like, I just kept sitting on it and sitting, like I had it, like I just never said it to anybody. And I'm like, this is what I could do. And I had my list on my phone of like who I can have on.
Yeah.
And, and I knew Nick, who's my producer. I'm like, he'll help me. Like he'll do, any questions. And so
and it's so out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, super. Like
Julie's people who don't know her, Julie's a very behind the scenes type of girl. Like she's going to be, doing the work, but not in front of the camera.
No.
So this podcast was like pretty big.
But I knew I had to do it because it's my company and
yeah, no, definitely.
I don't trust really anybody else to kind of take it over.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So then I'm like, I'll do that. And so then October, like my furlough from the sports hub ended when I thought like, okay, maybe I still have my job back. So then I'm like really like, oh shit, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So we started the podcast and it's just been doing so well. And then my friend Nick, who I told you guys, he helped me like come on tour. He's the one that I met the tour manager and, he brought me down to Orlando. He like reached out to me and was like, I really need some help with the influencers that he works with and this and that and these projects. And he was like, would you want to come on? And I was like, okay, just like weighing all the options. And then he was like, just fly out for 2 weeks and we'll do like a trial to LA. And I'm like, okay. And so I flew out November, COVID tested, did all the good stuff.
Obviously take COVID precautions.
So I flew out and I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like I knew all the I knew all the influencers, like.
And this is at the trailer compound.
Yeah, I'm at the trailer compound.
And you were like, where am I?
Yeah, I'm like, why do I have 2 codes to get into this? One to get into the community and one to get into the house. Like, where am I? This is not Brighton, Mass.
This is like a little bit of a Hannah Montana situation.
Yeah, and so I just kind of was like, this is kind of sick. Like, I'm not working in an office. Like, my schedule is like not a 9 to 5 schedule, and I can still balance doing my podcast. And still, like all these stuff that I need to do, like to build everything, I can still do. And so I was like, all right, Nick, like, let's do it. And me and Nick work really well together. Like, I know how he is, and he knows how I am. And so since November, I've now been splitting my time between Boston and LA, and I work with the Triller compound.
Yeah, hence the Hannah Montana reference. The best of both worlds. Like you get to come home, live, your life here, and then you get to like really turn into Hannah Montana and live, that LA lifestyle.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone's always like, oh my God, you live this like crazy life. And it looks like that in LA, of course. But when I'm home in Boston, like I literally don't leave my couch. Like my dog is just on my lap 24/7, or people are always like, oh, let's like grab drink. Because obviously when you're doing something that people like, they pay attention to that like you're not really friends with. And I'm like, I'm not moving from JD's couch. Like, I am sitting on JD's and we're watching New Girl and I'm not getting up. Or, like I'm just like.
Because when you're there, you have to be so extroverted.
Yeah.
And you have to be
I'm like,
on.
Yeah. And so like when I'm home in Boston, I'm like, I appreciate like we can text and if we want to hop on a Zoom like meeting, like I'm good. Like, I don't know, like, I just, like, I am also someone that very much needs her alone time.
Yeah.
So, like, no, like, I need to be able to, like, just lay in bed all day and watch Netflix sometimes. Like, when I'm home, just because I'm so tired and out of a routine and stuff.
And you have to be super careful because with COVID, like, you need to make sure you test negative before you can fly to LA.
I'm thinking, like I said, I'm on, like, COVID test number, like, 26.
Yeah. Your nose is on fire.
Yeah. So, like, so when I'm home in Boston, like, I can't leave my house for, like, 4 days until I get my results back.
And then you want to be extra safe.
Yeah. So, because then I'm like, and then I need
that's
to
your
test,
career.
Then I need to test again to make sure I can fly back. So, so it's been crazy, but it's like things have like definitely picked up. Like I picked up some more social media clients, and it's interesting because like, I follow like a lot of strong women in the industry, whether it's the social media industry that has nothing to do with entertainment. They're just like social media managers, or a lot of strong women in the entertainment on Twitter, because that's like a very strong community. And everyone's now talking about their rates and like how much you should be charging and stuff like that. And
it's very transparent.
Yeah, which I love, because
like we've taken the curtain away.
Before I was like, okay, should I be charging this much, or like, what's the value?
Well, it's so new, right? Like it's a new career.
And so there was a time I was working at the Sports Hub. I was having 3 or 4 different social media clients, making not that much money doing all of that, and I was so stressed doing it. Now I work for the Triller compound. I have 2 social media clients and my podcast, I have less stress and I'm making way more money
Yeah.
because my clients like value my time and the job that I do. And it's definitely because I'm older, I'm learning, and I think the pandemic kind of is like, no, like that's not how this is going.
Yeah.
So it just kind of like put everying into like a different perspective.
And you definitely have to pivot in different ways that you never thought that you would.
Yeah. So it's been like a roller coaster, but like I'm at my high right now. So please, no one crash it.
No, definitely. So what would you say, owning your own business, what are your biggest peaks? What was your peak and what was your pit besides COVID hitting? Because I think obviously that's a pit for everyone, but just for on the business end.
Definitely the pit was that 222 night.
Yeah.
Just like the days that followed, just trying to like, okay, what do I
pick up the pieces?
Yeah, not even like the men there, like they were so disrespectful. Like,
yeah,
like if you talk about men who really do not give a shit about how a woman feel, like they literally tried to take advantage of me because I was like a woman. Like I will wholeheartedly, and I'm not saying like, sorry. Like,
no, yeah.
I wholeheartedly, like, and when I came back at them and I'm like, you don't know who the fuck you're talking to. Like,
yeah,
you don't understand. So that I think it was like a really big learning. I trust people way too easily because I'm like, I would never do that. So why would they do that to me? Like, so it was like, so like, I have a contract for everything. If you're doing business with me, you're signing a piece of paper. It's like, like I took, during COVID, I took a contract law class so that now I know everything. So that I know. So it was just like a learning, like, okay, that's not going to happen to me again.
Well, and I think with anything, like, customer service matters. Like, I think people, especially now, people are willing to forgive and, for like move on. But you have to like, you did a lot of really good customer service on that end. Like, you really, like, it was out of your hands. It wasn't up to you that this happened.
No, definitely.
And, you were transparent, you were honest. And I think people respected that. And they, it's not easy to fall down in front of everyone.
No, for
And then
sure.
to get back up and figure out how to do it all, especially because everyone's watching you, right? Like, this was so new, especially like where we live. Like, this isn't unheard of, essentially.
And it's my name. Like, because it's Fangirl Fantasy, but everyone knows it's Julie Russell too.
And everyone's watching. Like, this is when you were starting to like on the up, and it was like, oh my gosh, you see what Julie's doing? Like XYZ, and then all of a sudden, boom, that happened.
Yeah, so that was definitely my pit. But I also think I wouldn't be at these other great venues if that didn't happen, and it wouldn't have grown so quick. There's like a balance of that, and then my peak is probably like either Taylor Swift or Jonas Brothers or even New York. I don't know. Like I think
you could breathe at those events. I think the first few events you were like running around, like you were like, making sure everything was perfect, blah blah blah, like being a good business owner. But then at Taylor Swift, like
I could enjoy it.
You like really laid back and you got to like have fun and sing the music and not be so on.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely, I think so too. So we have some questions here. So a lot of the people that listen are fangirls.
Yes.
And they're trying to get into the industry. And you've done it. So a big part of what you do is like that networking, whole thing. What are your top tips to get out there and network and make those connections?
Okay. I will always say, be nice to every single person that you meet. And
you never know when you're
that sounds like silly. And like, I mean, that should just be a thing for anybody. But there's just so many times that I've like been in a room with someone and I'm just like, and then 2 weeks later, I'm like, you see them again and you're like, oh, wait, what? Or, oh, that's someone's assistant. And you don't find out that till later. And just being nice to everyone. Of course, there's a room when you're with someone and sometimes you're like, that person is a douchebag. You just be nice though. Be like, oh, so like, oh, cool. Like, yeah, let's connect. Let's like do this. Like, you don't have to like, but just be so nice to anyone that you meet, because also walking in thinking you're that like cool, too good to be, like, nobody cares, because there's always going to be someone that is above you, so never being like, so that, and then never being too good for any opportunity.
That's
especially
huge.
when you start like Vanessa from it, like, shout out you, like, there's times like there's so many stories that I'm just like, yeah, I gotta go do this with Vanessa. But it's like, I loved hanging out with Vanessa. She was on air and I had to go do that with her. Like, I didn't even have to. She like asked me, she goes, Julie, I know this isn't, I'm like, okay, whatever. It makes like, and that's how I became friends with all the on air people, is because I was doing that stuff. Or, like, JD and Tone were out drinking, and then they're like, hey, can you come pick us up? I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
you know? And so that's how I got in with like all them. It's just like, you're never too good. But then also, like, still know your value, of course.
Yeah.
But when you're starting, like, you're gonna have to do some shit that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
So that, and then I'm trying to think of like, I guess when even back then, like, there wasn't like the social media. Everybody wasn't on social media as much as they are now. Like, pitch yourself to somebody or use your social media as your resume. You know, like, follow everybody that you want to like follow, and like if you want to be that person, follow them on social media. See how they like present themselves. Send them a message after a little while, like even just like replying to a story, like, hey, like that's like saw you're working on this project. That's really cool. Like if you DM me, like I answer like anything. Like if you need help with something, like sometimes, you know, there's like things you can't really help with, but like I'm always going to answer something. But you know, social media is there now that you can just use to find the person that's at that job or join these networking Facebook groups. There's so many awesome where people are posting jobs and stuff. And you know, now I think also with the pandemic, there's people are using Zoom now to just hop on. Like I'm more than down if you like want to hop on a Zoom and we can have a conversation about just whatever, like send someone your resume and just, I don't know. I just think using every free like
moment
that you have, go, like if you see events happening or you see someone at a concert, like the tour manager or like the VIP assistant, just say hi to them, or like, you know, I don't know, just like using every experience or like opportunity that you have as much as you can in a polite and respectable way.
Yeah, definitely. And what would you say, like when you started, what is something that you think you've grown so much in that, like looking back, like if you asked yourself this 5 years ago, you never thought that you would be, you know, proficient at or the one to go to for this?
Yeah, no, never. Like it's weird. Like even just like people that I looked up to like at jobs, and I'm like, holy crap, I'm working with them now. Or the rooms that you never thought you belonged in, or you're at a meeting and you're just like, okay, I'm in the meeting, but am I allowed to like
Talk,
participate in the meeting? And now it's like there's meetings I'm holding, and it's like, okay, this is my meeting now. And I just think it's just crazy. I think every like the first tour I went on, can't believe I ever did that.
I can't believe you did that either.
Yeah, now I've done 2 tours, and
Yeah.
I have people texting me for next year to go on tour and stuff like that, and I'm like, what? People like are paying me to like
do this stuff?
Yeah, it's like I'm super grateful that none of this has really gotten old to me yet.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess it should, but I have been doing this for 6 years now.
Well,
like,
and social media is evolving.
Professionally for 6 years. Like people have been paying me to do tours or social media and this, and it still like hasn't gotten old to me. But I think like the biggest thing is like I have my own company.
I know.
That's like
CEO.
I don't like the founder.
The founder. Entrepreneur.
Yeah. So like I don't know, just like all of it, or just like I get DMs all the time asking for advice, and I'm just like, when did I get to the position
that you could give advice?
Yeah, like when I don't know, and I just also social media is a highlight reel, and you have to realize that too. And another thing I've learned is that no one really knows what they're doing.
No one does. Like I'm 27 and I'm like, I would know what I'm doing by now. No.
Like you're just kind of figuring it out. And I will say that like about social media, I'm super grateful about the experiences that I have and like the clients that I've gotten. But if you put me in a room with like 20 to 30 other social media managers, I would probably say like I'm at the bottom of the totem pole of like I'm not saying how good I am at it, but like
it's a skill. Yeah, it's a skill set.
But I learn as much as I can, and like I'm available all the time. Like I don't know, just kind of. I just wouldn't say I'm the best social media manager if I'm being honest. But if you needed someone to create an event or to create an experience, I would put myself in the beginning, like at the top of that.
Yeah.
But you know, like, so it's like also knowing like kind of where you are, like,
yeah, well, and being willing to like learn, right? Because this is all, you know, evolving and things like that. So just being willing to learn, watch others, and like never being too, you know, good for other people giving you advice.
Yeah, no, never. If someone needs to like tell me like, oh, like Nick, my producer, will always be like, okay, like on the podcast, like you should probably like, you know, like transition this way or next time do it this way. And I'm like, oh, you're right. And I try to do like but it's so hard when you're in the moment. But I'm always asking Nick. I'm like, okay, what do you think? Because I also don't know. Like, I worked in radio, but I wasn't on the air.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, I know how it should sound, but it's way different when you're actually trying to present yourself.
Yeah. Well, I listen to so many podcasts, and even doing this, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much harder than like me turning it on while I'm cleaning my house.
Yeah. So just always. I don't know. It's just always keep an open mind on every situation, and you are not better than the person standing next to you, no matter what title you have, who you work with, what you do. Like you're just.
Well, and I've seen like the people that you surround yourself with are so supportive, like in your industry. So I think it's also important that like it's not a competition. With like your quote unquote coworkers. Like you're all working together, and if you can support one another, if you can tag a friend or tag someone, like if you can help them, they help you.
For sure, 100%. It is. Yeah, it's not a competition because it's like, what's the finish line that we're competing for? There isn't a finish line. So,
no.
Yeah. No. Always. Yeah. No, support everybody that you can.
Yeah. And so say COVID goes away and we can get back to, doing venues and filling venues. Where are you hoping Fangirl will go within the next year or two? Like what are your goals this year, COVID pending?
Like where are we going, like event size, or like what is Fangirl Fantasy going to be?
More like what do you want to do this year? Like what do you want? Like what kind of events do you want to throw? Where do you want to go? What cities? Like the podcast? Like what are you thinking?
I want to go everywhere.
Whoever will take her.
Yeah. So like if you live in Montana, we might be coming to Montana. No. We were supposed to go on a tour, last fall, we were about to do like 20 cities, me and JD. And so like that got, so I'd love to like, do that a little bit, expand that a little bit more. I want to like get into like a little bit more. I can't really say a lot of it, but like interactive events.
Yep.
Maybe have some guests at these events,
some hosts,
some performances, some all that fun stuff. But yeah, bigger and better.
Yeah.
Of course, COVID's when
you can't plan right now. It's so hard to plan.
When it starts off, it will start off as the normal events, and then we're gonna keep escalating. I'm just excited to think about all the Taylor Swift music we have now that we can just.
We are so lucky. Shout out to Taylor Swift for getting us through.
Taylor, if you're listening to this, thank you so much.
And please come to an event.
Yeah, you want to play Love Story World by the original Taylor Swift,
Taylor's version.
Yeah. So I think just getting back to like the roots of Fangirl in the beginning, and then kind of going from there.
So if you're listening to this, DM Fangirl Fantasy. Tell them your city. Tell them where you want to see Julie's this event. DM her because she will come.
Yeah, tell me where you need me in. So that's probably long-term goal.
What would be your long-term podcast? Like, who are your top guests on the podcast besides Nick Jonas?
Oh, I was just gonna look into the camera and say Nick Jonas.
I knew you were gonna say Nick Jonas. Who are you dying to talk to?
Coach Bolton, Bart Johnson, come on. Which is gonna be happening soon. But
sneak peek.
Honestly, like obviously anybody in the Jonas Brothers, like any.
Would you ever considering having fans, like other fans
that like don't even work in the industry?
Yeah,
of course. I would love to do like after event like podcast or like a pre-event podcast.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Like a live podcast. But like a dream, I don't know. Like I would talk to anybody.
Yeah,
like anyone who has something to say. Like I would love. Like obviously, it's out of reach, but his story. And like the way the fans treat him and the way he could never like Justin Bieber's story with fans.
Yeah.
Like if like I like even like
getting the other side of it.
But like off the microphone, like even just like to talk to him I just would love to like he couldn't go anywhere without a fan.
No. Well, and a lot of these celebrities they couldn't.
Yeah. Like especially I think Taylor Swift, she disappeared for a whole entire year because paparazzi and stuff were following. Like, I just would love just that other side of it of like what's going through their head, and I think
how they view their fans and like how their fans have gotten them to where they're going and
Yeah.
how their fans impact the content, right?
Yeah,
Because you make content, but you make it for your
Yeah,
people that are watching it.
I think another person would be like, obviously, like Miley Cyrus, because I just had Olivia on.
Yeah.
And Miley's the first person to like really tap into hiring a fan. She
And,
really
yeah.
was the first person to do it. So just like kind of like, okay, what was your meetings before meeting with like Olivia? And being like, okay, if she says this, we can't hire her because she's too much of a fan. Or,
Yeah.
like, I would love to know kind of like the back end of that. Of like,
Or like, what are they looking for, right?
Yeah.
When like, so you could tell, you know, people listening, like, it would be awesome to have someone big on like that would be like, this is what we look for.
Yeah. So yeah, I think like Miley's side of like hiring Olivia, and she's had Olivia on her team now for so long, and like any like advice she has to other artists, like to like hire a fan. So
And Miley's definitely pivoted so much, and her fans have stayed the same. Like they've grown, but like her her Hannah Montana fans are still her fans now. Like she was able to do a complete 180, and you know, and keep her fans, and you know, keep her like doing the content that she likes.
Yeah, for sure.
And stay true to herself. So that'd be cool too. So we asked some questions on Fangirl on Julie Russell's Instagram. Your Instagram.
Yeah. Corinne was like, you need to get some outsider questions. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
well, we figured, you know, we do this for the listeners, so the listeners should be able to ask some questions. So let me see. I have some written down here. Some of them we might have already like touched upon, but someone said best way to reach a fan base that you're not exactly a part of. So how to tap into those different demographics.
So I will say I'm not as educated as I would like to be about K-pop, and I've said this before, because their fan base is just so freaking amazing. They're so dedicated, and they're just like, they blow my mind. They are just like BTS's fan, like all of it. They're just, and so like I like will like go like on trending hashtags, and like when there's like a release of a song, be like, okay, like that's what they're doing. That's like kind of, but it's a lot of just like homework.
Yeah.
And so like I like, okay, like BTS has this new song out and this cover, so I'll be like post that on my like socials and like be like, okay, this is what the BTS like fandom is looking for, or this is kind of what's trending in there. You know, I'll kind of like go on Twitter for that kind of stuff, and see what like, oh, this clip has like 100 million views, so like what's going on with this? So definitely just doing a lot of homework
on the
for
back
me.
end.
Like for me, it's the K-pop world that I'm not educated on. That is the one that I'm trying to tap
into. Yeah, and going about that. Another question was, what is your craziest experience of being a fan? And then I'm actually going to take it further of when you were on that other side, like Playlist Live. Like, what's the craziest thing you've seen from fans?
Okay, craziest thing being a fan. Probably just the summer of Grown Ups 2 with Alexander Ludwig. He was just so sweet to me, and I was there every single day, and he really could have just looked me in the eyes and just said, Julie, fucking leave me alone. Like, I've seen you every day for the past 30 days. But he never did, and he was super sweet. So just like kind of like, probably should have backed off a little bit.
Testing the boundaries.
Yeah.
That was the summer of testing boundaries.
Yeah, it was like poking the bear a little bit. Like waiting for it to like.
And finding the line, right? That fine line.
And then the craziest thing of being on the other side, this is kind of like full circle, I guess. We had a day off in Dallas, Texas on the Boys of Summer tour, and I was just like Blake Gray and Aaron, and like Blake was really, really, I mean, he's big now, but he like that was like his first really height of like his career, and then he kind of like went down and now he's back up. So Blake was like really big. We had a day off, and we were with Harvey too, who was really big, and we went to Six Flags. But we were like all waiting there, like everyone kind of wanted to do their own things. Like we're gonna go to one house, like there's a pool, and like people want to go swimming. Some people wanted to go to the mall, and then like this crew wanted to go to Six Flags. And I was one of the staff members, obviously, and there was like probably 7 to 10 staff members. And they're like, we can't go to Six Flags unless a staff member goes. And I'm like standing there, like in the group of said who they wanted to go to Six Flags with. And I'm like, oh yeah, who do you think we can get to go? And they all looked at me like, Julie, you're the staff member. What do you mean? Like, are you coming? Because then we can go. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. But now I'm like, I have fucking 6 kids, and we're like 6 to 10 kids I'm responsible to go to. I'm like, okay, yeah. So we all went to Six Flags. And as soon as we got there, like fans just like recognized them. And I'm like, this is kind of cool, kind of weird. And so then we were like going on like in line to wait in the rides, and like people are just like lining up behind us, like the fans like following us. And then like throughout the day, like we were posting we were at Six Flags, and then more fans were just coming to Six Flags because we were there. Like, how imagine
You
just being
stood out.
yeah, but just imagine being like, oh, like we can go, like we're just gonna go to Six Flags because they're there. It was just like kind of weird.
Yeah.
And it was to the point like we'd get off rides and there was like hundreds of fans just waiting, and then like they'd get their picture and then still follow us, and I had to like ask them, I'm like, girls, like you just got photos, like do you care if like we just like go on these rides? And just like people used to say that to me, and I had to be the one, and even though like I
And now
get
you're
it,
saying it. Yeah.
like we allowed them to get their photo and like
Yeah.
say hi, and then we're like, can we like go on the rides now?
Yeah.
So that was kind of like crazy. But even now, like I was like, I get fan DMs, like people like because of who I'm associated with and who
Yeah.
I work with. So just getting DMs like, Julie, we love you, like this.
Yeah,
and
when
that.
Blake posted you, that was big.
Yeah, like when these like when I just am getting reposted on Instagram and just people see who I'm associated with, like my comments and DMs and follow like are just crazy. And it's like I get it because that's how I used to feel like about like the Jonas Brothers tour manager, or this person that runs this VIP for them. Like I was following them just because I was like they're like they could be posting about them.
Yeah.
And so now it's like me getting those
Really full
fans.
circle.
Yeah. So it's like it's just kind of crazy.
That is really crazy. Another question was most shocking thing you learned about working in entertainment, or most shocking thing that you noticed.
I guess I did already kind of say it, but like nobody really knows what they're doing. And it sounds weird, but everyone's figuring it out. And this industry is so interchanging that there's always something new to learn. Like nobody knows everything. They might just have more experience, or they might have like, you know what I mean? Like they've like worked longer. So, you might think that they know a little bit more, but the industry's changing so much. So it's like, yeah, that guy that's been in the industry for 40 years, that doesn't mean he knows everything about social media, because social media came out the same time that we were like rising in it. So it's like,
and it's changing, right? Like you could,
yes.
like, especially with TikTok now, like you could go viral one day and then flat the next.
Yeah. So it's just like, it's just because someone has a title of something, that doesn't mean they know everything that you don't know. Like, so I don't know. Yeah, I guess just kind of learning like these big head like honcho guys or like girl like,
are still
women.
learning.
Yeah, they're not. Don't be intimidated, because you probably just know just as much as they
do. Yeah, and now you're kind of on the other side, and you're still a fan. So what has that been like?
What do you mean?
Like now that you're on the other side of it, like what are you into now?
Oh, music wise and stuff? And
yeah, like
shows?
what are you listening to? What are you watching? What content are you loving?
Okay, so I'm a little late to the game, but since quarantine started, I'm pretty sure I've watched Vampire Diaries in full about 5 times, and it's 9 seasons long. So that can just give you a little taste of how my mindset is. I have an addictive personality, so once I like something and I like it, I'm like, I have to indulge all of it. So the Vampire Diaries as a fandom, I'm like following them, like the fans on TikTok and like the trending videos, because it's just like I love that kind of world. So I'm like, I like always just watch the Vampire Diaries now. New shows, I really enjoyed Julie and the Phantoms on Netflix that came out.
Yeah.
And I love that poppy music. So I like listen to that soundtrack just because it's so fun.
Yeah.
And what else? Music wise?
Yeah, who are you loving?
I feel like I always say it, but like MGK's album is so good.
Yeah.
I've been listening to like Fletcher a lot. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her.
Yeah.
I love her music. Jeremy Zucker, Chelsea Cutler.
I love Chelsea Cutler.
Yeah, that's like kind of like my vibe. I mean, Miley's album I still have on like loop because it's just bop, 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 bop. Yeah, I'm still very much in that poppy world, and it's never gonna change. But I'm always like looking at like for like my friend Sam is on the podcast, and she's a manager, and so whenever she posts like music in her stories, because I just trust her judgment, I'm always like, oh, let me go check out that artist. So I'm always just like, even if it's only like their single or something like that, I'm always like trying to just consume as much as possible, because even if I don't enjoy something, there's still a fandom for it.
Exactly.
Like even if I don't get it, there's still 100,000 people that do get it. And so like I just need to like keep my mind open and just know what's relevant. Like I really need to like make sure I know. Like I was super late to the High School Musical, the musical series.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know I didn't really think I understood, like, when it came out, I didn't, like, know the concept of what it was gonna
Yeah.
be, and I didn't understand that they were actually having a musical of high school. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
it
just
just
kind of thought,
didn't click.
yes. And so then, like, Driver's License came out, and of course, I knew who Olivia was, and Josh, and Serena, but I'm like, okay, now I gotta go watch. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get the hype of, like,
Yeah.
I just never watched, so I just need to, like, make sure I keep up with everything. Because I was really late to that scene.
And now TikTok. Now you're really in the TikTok space. Both, like, you are an emerging TikTok star yourself.
Yeah, I have 25,000 followers.
So follow, what is it, Julie_Russell?
Yeah,
follow
no, please
Julie's.
don't follow me. It's literally
You and your dog.
yeah,
But people love it.
yeah, it's funny.
And what's like now, so you work for the Trailer Compound, so those are huge TikTokers.
Mm-hmm.
What is that like to now see the behind the scenes of the TikTok, and then how do you kind of use that in your own TikToks?
So my TikTok, when it's not of my dog, everything I try to do is for fans. I just really like, so all my TikToks are like, if you guys want me to like so I work with Aisha and Azra, the Mion twins, and so they're always like, can you tell Aisha and Azra I said hi? So I like go get them and like record a video of them saying hi to that person, because I'm like, I have access to these people, like to these people that everyone loves. I'm like, of course, like I'd rather like make these videos for the fans, and then also the twins look great because it's like they're giving back to their fans by saying hi to them. So if it's not of my dog, it's like trying to give back to the fans. And like I did like a Q&A the other day on my TikTok because I had some time, but it's like people are curious and they're like, what do you do? Like, you know, like this and that and all that. So everything I try to do is really trying to like engage with the fans, because I get it. I just really do understand how they feel.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think that's all the questions we got in. And I don't think I have any more questions. Is there anything else you want to like shell yourself out and talk about?
No, I feel like nobody needs to know anything else about Julie Russell ever again.
You can just refer to this podcast if you have any questions.
Yeah. And if there are any questions, like you can just, like I said, DM me, tweet me on Fangirl or my personal.
Follow Fangirl Fantasy, Julie_Russell on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah. But yeah, besides, I think it's just everyone's journey is different, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it's never going to be like that. And like I said, like social media is a highlight reel, so you can, I've deleted like old posts and stuff like that. Like I'm sure a lot of people do. So you don't see the journey of like everything else.
Yeah, no one really sees like the come up, but they want to be part of it when you're on the top. You know?
Yeah. So just it doesn't happen overnight. It's never going to happen overnight. There's going to be good days and bad days, and you'll get through it, and you're going to get to where you want to be. You always do. And enjoy the ride. Like I always will have to be like, this is what I wanted. Like, if I'm stressed or if I'm like, okay, like chill. Like you wanted this and you're here. Enjoy it.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And if you're loving this podcast, Julie would never shell herself out herself, so I will do it for her. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel, or leave a review, 5 stars. Really, let's get our girl a sponsor here. She's been working hard. She would never shell herself out herself, so I'm here to do it for her.
Oh, thanks, Corinne.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on the podcast. This has been great.
This is your shining moment. This is all Corinne's ever wanted, is to be a podcaster.
I love podcasts, listening to them. It's definitely different to be one, though.
Yeah, it is. But thank you all for listening to another episode of the Fangirl Fantasy Podcast. I will talk to you all next week. Thank you.
Goodbye.